in Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Hey, all right, you betcha I'm live. This is Mike Alexander. Welcome back here, Jonathan Wilson. Glad you're back with us, my friend.
Good to be back.
Right,
Can
you
hear me?
betcha I'm live. This is Mike Alexander. Welcome back. Well, I got a little recirculated delay there that played in my headphones, but in any event, I guess I'm here. Sorry for the confusion out there. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. If you'd like to be part of the program tonight, we have a great program. We ask you to call here, 866-870-5752. Again, Radio Free Los Angeles here at KRLA AM 870. The answer, 866-870-5752. Here in a few minutes, I'm going to have our special guest here, Dr. Matthew Peterson from the Claremont Institute. He's going to be calling in. I will introduce him in more detail, tell you more about him when he does call in. In the meanwhile, we're all entitled to a little bit of a flyby here because that detestable, irritating Measure EE went down to complete and total defeat last week. Measure EE, as you will recall, was an odious parcel tax that was being put on the ballot by the Los Angeles Unified so-called School District, and it was intended to raise $500 million a year to go down, the pension rat hole and the bureaucratic rat hole that they call the LAUSD. That's the same organization that is poised and ready to be taken into receivership by the state of California or by whoever in the world will have them. So this was a great victory on your part. There's a few things that you ought to know about it, however, and that is just how close it was. In this sense, it went down 55 to 45%, but the voter turnout was only 304,000 out of a total registration of 2.5 million. In other words, voter turnout was less than 15%. So it was a very poorly run campaign, and if I had to make a guess, I think that they decided to phone it in because they had an irresistible legal challenge filed against them by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. But these thieves are not resting. They have announced their intention to get it back on the ballot. We just don't know when. These people can't do anything except spend money wildly. It's amazing. I am now informed these people can't do anything. I'm getting a recirculation again there. In any event, I'm informed here that we now have our guest on there. Dr. Matt Peterson, are you there, sir?
How are you?
Hey, there you are. Great. Thank you for joining us tonight. Matthew Peterson, I've known since he was a young man. Well, heck, he's still a young man. But since he was a very young man, classmate of my son's. But let me tell you a little bit about him. Matthew Peterson is Vice President of Education at the Claremont Institute. And I'm reading here from his biography here at the Claremont Institute here. In this role, he has three major directives. Dr. Peterson directs the organization's expanding portfolio of educational programming, including Claremont's annual Publius, Lincoln, John Marshall, and Speechwriters Fellowships. That's enough right there. That's a busy program. He also heads up our initiative to create a new center designed to support and advance graduate-level study in America. And third, as if the first two weren't enough, he is working to increase Claremont's voice in the national political conversation. We'll talk more about that here in our interview. Dr. Peterson graduated from the Great Books program at Thomas Aquinas College, which is where I first met him, classmate of my son's, and he received his Master of Arts in Politics and his Ph.D. in Political Science from Claremont Graduate University. As a professor, he has taught courses on political philosophy, American government, rhetoric, and media at the School of Public Policy at Pepperdine University, Loyola Marymount University, and Claremont McKenna College, among other things. From 2008 to 2011. I don't know if we're going to get them. I got to know this. That's the Obama administration. From 2008 to 2011, Dr. Peterson assisted in the design, implementation, and evaluation of U.S. Department of Education Teaching America History initiatives. There's got to be 2 hours of conversation there. Dr. Peterson also has an extensive background in media and political research, including a 3-year stint beginning in 2003 as a researcher for the Claremont Institute. And now for the first question, the last sentence in his biography, and the first question for the interview is, Dr. Peterson lives with his wife and 4 kids in Pasadena, California. How in the world did you have time? So it is great to have you on this evening, and I've been wanting to have you on for a long time. So
it's great to be here with you and your listeners. It's about time we did this.
Yes, long overdue.
People don't realize you can get a great education at Thomas Aquinas College, and at least you could at Claremont Graduate University in political philosophy and American government.
Exactly.
An education that was actually respectful of American founding principles right here in Southern California.
It's astonishing. And really, it's probably possible to get a good education at any university, but it would have to be despite what they teach. So if you've learned how to read and how to think on your own, as many students do, and ignore what you've been taught in these regards, well, you can do quite a bit to educate yourself if you just read well and read widely in 4 years. But that process is so much better. Are you talking to me, Jonathan?
On the air right now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Now you're on live.
Oh, we were just testing the microphone. We were having some technical difficulties.
Okay, all right.
So good. I'm on standby if you need me for anything.
Okay, all right. So we've had a few technical difficulties. You sent me a couple of links here tonight. What intrigues me most about what you've been doing and the direction that the Claremont Institute has been taking is this project called The American Mind. Sounds great. Very kind of a broad term. Maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about what's entailed in that.
Sure. So the Claremont Institute, which I'm still, surprised many people in Southern California don't even realize exists in Southern California, it really has a national mission. And that national mission is to restore the principles of the American founding into American political life. It's been around for 40 years. It's educated a few generations of American leaders and elites. Some of them your listeners would know. People like Mark Levin were fellows and educated by us. People like Laura Ingraham. There's Ben Shapiro. These were all fellows of the Claremont Institute, and we educated them about American founding principles. And we have a signature publication that you can subscribe to. It's one of the best publications in print now, and people all over the political spectrum are acknowledging that, especially in the last few years after Trump. The Claremont Review of Books.
CRB.
I encourage, yes, the CRB, which I encourage listeners to subscribe to, is our signature publication. And it's like receiving a short book in the mail with nothing but good stuff. I mean, this issue now has Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale, who's a Claremont graduate, and a board member of the Claremont Institute, on Larry Arnn writing about the latest and a very good biography of Churchill.
Yes.
Among other things. Michael Anton writing about Tucker Carlson. And so that's our signature publication, but it only comes out 4 times a year.
Right.
So when I started and when I came back to the Claremont Institute last year, we decided to make something that would publish a little bit more frequently and would get us more involved in the debates that are going on nationally. And we call that the American Mind. And if you go to AmericanMind.org, you can check it out. And we're not really concerned with, BuzzFeed listicles and following the news cycle. We're concerned with explaining what are the underlying ideas underneath all this stuff you hear about every day and you're bombarded with. So AmericanMind.org, we really explore that. We have some of the best minds, thinkers, and doers on there talking about what's really at stake and what's really going on in American politics today.
Yes. Now, is that a newsletter, website, fee-driven, free? What?
It's free. It's a website.
Okay.
It's a website that's free. In the future, I think we're going to make at least electronically available pamphlets that might be published. Some of the content on there might be published in print.
Right.
But right now, it's just AmericanMind.org. It's a website, and we're engaging a lot of what's going on right now, and it's been praised by many people as leading the charge for a revised conservatism that is willing to fight in the age of Trump against the left.
I think we do. And right now, Trump, in so many ways, is fighting by himself. And many of the intellectual elite on the conservative side, and there are many, and they're very distinguished, and they're to be respected and highly regarded. But very often I think that they're put off by Trump's personality or by his manner. Somehow not equally put off by the left. But in any event, they reserve special contempt for this guy and seem reluctant to weigh in for fear of being identified as being on the same side of an argument, embarrassed. Trump is not an intellectual, but he asserts these ideas in a very common sense, intellectually defensible way. He needs help. And I hope that you can provide that through your organization.
Yes, and what I would say is I think people would be shocked. I mean, I'm in D.C. Fairly often, and we work with a lot of our fellows in Washington, D.C., many of whom work with the administration and work with President Trump. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is I think that a lot of conservatives or people on the right don't realize the extent to which what we call conservatism incorporated in Washington, D.C. is reluctant to move in various directions that Trump has shown can actually be successful. So,
yes.
In other words, within the administration itself, people are afraid many times to speak their minds when they're on Trump's side because there's so many conservatives who are also there who are unwilling to fight in the same way. And
yes.
I'm not talking about his personality or any of the downsides of the president. I'm talking more about bold moves to oppose the left. So, for instance,
yes.
When it comes to education, a topic I know is near and dear to your heart.
It sure is.
There are many people who, even a step like, let me give you an example. I signed a statement for the National Association of Scholars run by Peter Wood, a great guy, and they decided to try to push the Senate to make it so that the Higher Education Act won't be reauthorized until there's language in it that says if these colleges and universities don't abide by free speech, they don't get rid of their tyrannical speech codes, they're going to be in danger of losing federal funding.
Right.
Now, senators like Lamar Alexander, they're not interested in that.
I know, man.
And conservative establishment, obviously, they're not interested in threatening them. They're very comfortable with, something more like Common Core, No Child Left Behind.
Right.
But they don't want to threaten, the education establishment, and that's a real problem for us.
Yeah, it is, and that establishment has taken over and dominated a huge part of our discussion. And by the way, you mentioned that that one. I think you had one review here recently. Andrew Roberts, his recent biography of Churchill. We were fortunate enough to have him on the show here a few months ago. Following his presentation out here, a wonderful guy. and a very common fellow, and of course one of the ruling elite when it comes to biography. So he and Larry Arnn are blood brothers there. But getting back to what we have, frequently over here on this side, we are dealing with issues of persuasion and voting, and we all know how terrible certain voting practices have been on the left. We have such things as ballot harvesting, voter ID fraud, you name it. And what that is the story about how one party, typically the Democrat Party, manages to move from 48 or 49% to 50.1%. And conservatives spend a tremendous amount of energy on that when the real question is not how did they move from 48 or 49 to 50.1 and take the election. The real question is how the hell did these people ever get to 48 or 49 to start with? And there's an answer to that question. And that answer is the government monopoly, the left-wing monopoly on K through 12 so-called education, and the left-wing monopoly on so-called higher education. And Republicans are going to continue, and conservatives are going to continue to find themselves marginalized and at a disadvantage if they don't do something to attack that increasing minority. And as you and I discussed earlier today, even as organizations like the Claremont Institute expand their audience numerically in an absolute number, it is relatively declining and in many cases actually dying because of the age group which dominates so much of it. A lot of it has to do with money, we recognize, but it seems to me that that there has to be a tremendous effort to push back the left everywhere where it exists, and nowhere does it exist in greater numbers, with greater force, with greater control, or with more deleterious impact on society than K through 12. And that's why the first step, I think, to get our country back, there are many, of course, must be taken at the same time. But the first major step must be to take our children back, take our money back that is associated with them. Then we can take back our country. But if we don't have a plan to take our kids back, I fear that no matter how successful you and your organization are, we will ultimately fail. What do you think about that? I mean, I don't hear a lot on the right. I hear school choice nodded at, right? Somewhat like
look,
people bless themselves going into church,
Right. No, I absolutely agree with you. And look, I'm writing something right now which will appear on the American Mind Wednesday or Thursday about this, and I've given some talks on it. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I want to write a book on it. I mean, this is my mission. This is my life.
Yes.
If we don't address the crisis of American education, we will lose the form of government that we've traditionally had in this country. We are now at that point. So
yes,
this is a regime-level crisis. You're teaching people throughout the country, from K through 12, that their country is nothing but evil. And you have young, intelligent people on the left, and I would add on the right, who are now thinking about how their country is inherently unjust, and we need to change the form of government we have in the future if we're going to get anywhere.
Absolutely.
And so on the right, I have a lot of complaints that are similar to yours. Mm-hmm. William F. Buckley, in a way, starts the conservative movement, writing God and Man at Yale, a book complaining about how these were atheists and friendly to communism, that Yale was, the professors. Mm-hmm. And that was almost 70 years ago. Conservatives have complained about higher education for almost 70 years. Alan Bloom's Closing of the American Mind, William Bennett. We've complained about how bad education is for decades, and yet education has gotten worse and not better, and we haven't really done much about it. So now, especially with Trump as president, and I think he has a good chance of being reelected, we have to have a plan to revise this in radical ways, or it's all for nothing. And so, I spend a lot of time with many people encouraging them in this direction to say, look, these are your enemies, and as Ryan Williams, president of the Claremont Institute, just wrote in a signature essay against multiculturalism and identity politics, these are now seminaries of anti-Americanism.
Yes.
And as such, we need to defund them. We need to take away the revenue streams unless they can start teaching American principles and purpose.
Yes.
And so, there are people, I think, increasingly recognizing this, but we need a lot more. So I'll give you one hopeful example. I had a call with a fellow from South Dakota this week. In South Dakota, no one's reported this actually yet, and your listeners will probably hear more about it in the months to come, but up until now, no one's really figured it out. The legislature in South Dakota has actually passed a bill requiring the state universities to enforce viewpoint diversity. In other words, they can't just be a bunch of leftists teaching. And I'm interested in the hearing they're going to have about how to implement that.
Yeah.
But we need in red states, we need legislatures saying, look, you can't keep doing this, or we're taking away the money. We need the feds to say, look, you're putting a bunch of people in debt. We're giving you free money in the form of these loans that you do. Do what with? You increase tuition, you hire more administrators, and kids come out. They don't know crap about crap. They get degrees and stuff like screenwriting and $60,000 a year.
Right.
And what are we doing here? And so the thing is, the right has to learn. The American right, the conservatives have to learn. We need to use the threat of withdrawing funding, or we're not going to get anywhere.
And it's been
higher education.
Yeah, and it
solves a whole other problem.
How many minutes do I have here in this half hour? Okay, we got 3 minutes left. Of course, we will continue after the bottom of the hour. But going back to this defunding, of all the things with this electoral majority that we handed McConnell and Ryan out of this whole business, we not only failed to cut spending or even hold the line, we continued to support public television, so-called, NPR. The Department of Education is still in business, the National Endowment for the Arts, and a zillion other things that we have yet to get rid of, and yet we've been trying to get rid of these things since the 80s, since Ronald Reagan. And these are small things to be done. We can't even do the small things. And I frankly don't think that the Republicans, Republicans as a party, I don't think they have it in them. Here in California, of course, we no longer have a party. I believe that this initiative to get our children back and to retake the future is going to come from average citizens who, as we know, if they're Americans, are anything but average. Americans are an extraordinarily effective and energetic group, and that applies to a whole new group of people who are here. Hell, they're not even American. They're some foreign derivation. So many of their children, however, are Americans, and I think that they, the average layman, the average citizen, the average parent, is a very powerful force in America and is looking at a very bleak future for them and for their children. And the elites here, including the whole conservative movement, have by and large have failed the average guy.
Yep.
I just don't think that they identify with him. I think they're as far removed culturally and mentally as anybody on the left. They're just as remote. They look just as effete. We've got no common touch.
They've been educated in the same schools.
That's right.
So they agree with everything that they've been imbibed. The Kool-Aid from all the elite schools, even if they had a few professors or one program here to make them call themselves Republican, there certainly is a uniparty establishment that thinks they know what's best for America. In the meantime, as you say, many people working class, middle class, and below, they see that these schools are not working for their children, and they want a route to change.
Hey, we have a lot more to talk about. That music that you hear in the background means that we're coming up to the end of our first half hour. Don't forget, if you want to be part of the program, to call 866-870-5752. In the meanwhile, we'll be back after the half hour with Dr. Matt Peterson from the Claremont Institute, Mike Alexander, and what's your name in there? Jonathan Wilson. We'll be back with you after the break.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, we are live. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles. Hey, Jonathan, if you're in there and you're able to break in, people need to remember this is citizen-sponsored radio. And if you want to help support this and keep great guests on here like Dr. Matthew Peterson, where do they go? What do they do?
Go to schoolchoice2020.org and click the contribute button, and you can sign up for a monthly contribution. $5 a month goes a long way with our organization.
Excellent. Yeah, and more important, that $5 has, or 10 or 20 or 100, like many of our contributors there, that sends a powerful signal, not just to the enemy, but more important to our friends whom we have to go to in the moneyed classes who are going to help us qualify the school choice ballot initiative for the November 2020 ballot.
Yeah, oh, by the way, we just had somebody call in that's running for president against Trump.
Oh, yeah.
On the Republican side.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And he's the only major candidate we're informed?
I think that's what he said, yeah.
Well, we hope he calls in
Yeah.
after the 9 o'clock hour because we're going to start a Radio Free Los Angeles contest here. What name will Donald Trump pick out for this guy, right? So, at any rate.
Yeah, and I think his name was Larry.
Larry?
So, Larry, if you're listening, please call in after 9. We just have a guest this hour, so we're not taking any calls.
We'd love to hear from you. So if you got a plan to beat Trump, you really ought to call the Democrats. You could sell that idea right now. Hey, we're back with you here. Our telephone number is 866-870-5752. And we're back on with Matthew Peterson from the Claremont Institute and the moderator of the new website and a whole new initiative at the Claremont Institute called The American Mind. And where do they go to sign up for this program again, Matt?
Just AmericanMind.org. If
There you
go.
go.
AmericanMind.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's nifty, short, just gives you the guts of what we're doing every week.
Yes.
And some really excellent commentary will be on there about education next week and the next few weeks. There's
Yes.
a great essay now by a professor named Josh Mitchell, who's a professor, but he actually knows stuff. He's kind of these days. And he says it's a great essay because he talks about how identity politics and political correctness is really a kind of religion. It's a religion that infects these elite universities we were talking about earlier before the break.
Yes.
I say K-12 education is just as important. If you want to talk about teaching American history initiatives, 2008, we can do that too.
Sure. Well, let's look at this. I've been going over some numbers here. Like yourself, I will be writing on this subject in much more depth here in the next several months. But when I was looking at some basic numbers, it's very extraordinary what effect the educational establishment or the school establishment has on the American population. Right now, only about, in fact, you pointed it out in your your speech back there in front of the what was it, Providence Christian College, in your commencement address. You point out, you said the number was 30. I thought it was about 25 and 25%. But the good news is that many ways only about 1/4 of the population goes on to get one of these degrees. And I'm convinced that combined with the dropout rate in high school is the only thing that's saving us. I'm serious. I think that a lot of these kids sit there and they listen to these goofy people, some of them now in drag, teaching them, and they say, man, what's in it for me? I'm going to go with my uncle. I'm going to learn how to lay brick, lay pipe. But maybe I can find something useful to do. Yeah, and other people don't see the value proposition in education. Hey, we've got a quick question here. Mel from Van Nuys says he's got a question for Matt. So, Mel, are you there, my friend? Mel? Can somebody put Mel on line 2 on? Mr. Wilson? Jeff, can anybody put on line Mel on line 2? Can you patch him through? Well, at any rate, I tell you what, when we finally get it, we're having a few glitches here tonight, but as soon as we get him on, we'll do the question. One of the things that I find most fascinating about the American Mind Project is that, it's so broad and so warpy in concept, but ultimately is exactly descriptive of what you need to be doing. I've observed here, many times your listeners have heard, the 3 types of gerrymandering. The first type, of course, is where they redraw the lines to get people that they want. The second way that they get Americans or voters that they want is, of course, a legal immigration. But the third and most pernicious kind of gerrymandering, as it were, is the system of public education, which is designed to transform the students from being whoever it was that they were, whoever it was they were inclined to be, to become this new type of American. And it is a quite deliberate effort to undermine and destroy this unique thing that we call the American mind. It exists out there in the streets and on the warehouses and so forth, and used to be representative of America. De Tocqueville talked about these things.
Yes.
What is the reaction from other conservatives or other conservative organizations to this new initiative, Matthew?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. We have lots of people, especially younger conservatives, I'm happy to report, who will work for more establishment outfits, whether they're think tanks or politicians, and they'll quietly come to us and say, we love what you're doing. We completely agree 100%. Please press forward, because we're able to say things that the rest of the right can't say or won't say.
Right.
And so people right now in the intellectual ruling class on the right, as you mentioned, most of them have been miseducated, often by their education, and their educational formally, and so the people in charge are, they want to do the same old thing. They don't want to talk about a crisis of America. They just want to do the same old thing and get the same old money they've always received.
Yes.
So a lot of the younger folks and, some of our friends who are obviously older and been around, they're very happy to see this take off. On the other hand, you have a lot of other people who I think we make nervous. And in a way, it's my job as editor and founder of AmericanMind.org to keep a lot of people on the right nervous and to push them to start thinking about what's going on really politically and what are real solutions and plans that we can implement to change things. And education is very much, as you say, I think one of the best. There's an old professor at the University of Nevada at Reno called John Marini. John Marini has written some of the best books on the administrative state, the rise of this fourth branch of government that rules us from Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And John will say, when he teaches at Reno, the best part about it is just what you said earlier, that a lot of people, they're just trying to get their nursing degree or whatever, and they don't care about this crazy crap they hear about in the humanities classes.
Right.
They just go, it just rolls right through them and they move on. The problem is when people take it seriously, so especially at the elite level, we're really doing our students a disservice, and we're not creating a class of leaders who are truly excellent. We're teaching them to hate America.
Yes. I want to come back to, are we ready for Mel? Can we put Mel on line 2 on? Hey, all right. Hey, Mel, are you there, my friend?
You hear me?
Thank you for, we can hear you now, Mel.
Okay.
And you have a question for Matthew Peterson.
Don't forget the pervasive social promotion. It's rampant. And these degrees that these kids are getting are practically not worth what the paper they're written on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that has to be addressed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The second thing for Mr. Peterson is, do you know of a primer or a book that would basically teach Americans basic civics? I know your program
Great question.
gets into that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking something like Bastier's Capitalism or something along those lines.
Yeah, that is a fantastic question, and it's there's a few things I can think of. I would say if you go to Claremont.org, there are a lot of shorter essays that give an account of American principles and purpose. There's a new, but it's hard if you mean something to use in schools. It's very difficult to find anything. I'm trying to think. There's a new book by a great conservative type. He's a great historian who just came out with a new book that's intended to replace Howard Zinn's. You know who Howard Zinn is? I mean, he has.
Oh, that guy, yeah. The Real American History, or whatever he calls it.
Yeah, so he has the best-selling, history books that you'll find at Barnes & Noble that basically all the high school teachers have adopted over the last few decades.
Right.
Radically anti-American. But, you actually, that question is great because it goes to a sore spot on the right. I mean, what would you use in replacement for Howard Zinn? It's very difficult. I mean, there's a number of historians out there I could think of who write great histories of, biographies of great Americans, but we don't actually have an entire industry publishing
That's a little more disjointed. I was thinking of something more definitive that people could pick up and just almost memorize certain parts of it as they read it over a period of time.
What are they doing over at St. Monica's Academy on the history side? I mean, I know several people over there, and it's been my experience that they have been assembling their own materials and taking bits and pieces of different reference works to get a good outcome. What's your experience been on that?
No, they do, but I think what Mel, the question is good because there's not like one small book I can point to off the top of my head, and that's that's a problem. There's a great guide to the Constitution that the Heritage Foundation actually does have online, and it has commentary on the Constitution, but that's not quite what you're rightly asking for. There's I believe, I haven't read it yet, a great new history. I can't think of the name now. It'll come to me soon. It's on my desk. That we're reviewing. That's a textbook history of the United States.
Excellent.
Is trying to accomplish what you're talking about. I'll look it up before I say goodbye tonight. But
okay,
Mike, I just want to say one thing. Don't forget that social promotion in our schools.
Oh, he hasn't.
When they come down those degrees, what good are they?
Yeah. That's right. Mel, thank you for calling. Yeah, what would your comment be on that, Matthew?
No, I think he's right about that. I mean, one of the things that broke my heart when I started teaching was in colleges, and I also was outside the academy, so it kept me somewhat sane. But when I go in and teach classes at Loyola Marymount, Pepperdine, Claremont McKenna College, the great schools, it would break your heart when you'd see these kids come in to an intro to political science class who are getting a degree in screenwriting or something, which is technically worthless. I mean, It's not, you don't get a degree in screenwriting and go up to Warner Brothers and they hire you.
Right.
And you're talking $50,000-$60,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Max.
So we continue to encourage students to incur this debt, and we continue to expect people to have a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
And we all know, and the people know better than the elites, that these degrees are really not worth the money people are spending.
And I think, and as you might imagine, given the our age and the number of children that we've had in higher education, and being plugged into the community at large, talking with a lot of families and the experience that they've had, the value proposition of college, I think, is on the ropes. There's still going to be people who want to go to elite colleges because of the credential value, not because of the educational value, but the credential value itself, just the brand. But the average 4-year degree is one of the most common things around. And if you're lucky, you can get a job at Starbucks, which you could have gotten when you turned 17 and a half without going through 4 years and so forth. So we have diminished the value of labor, setting up higher education, that is the acquisition of this 4-year degree, as resulting in human endeavors that are somehow more noble or better or more valuable to society. Go ahead.
It's maddening. It's maddening. And it really bothers me because I remember growing up with many working class relatives. I remember my grandfather, who worked in a factory for a long time, these were very intelligent people who would read, widely on their own.
Yes.
They had better educations than many people who have fancy degrees today. And this idea that education only occurs when you're young, first off, is ridiculous. We should be learning our whole lives. And you're exactly right. I mean, they denigrate these, quote unquote, lower jobs on the chain, and they idolize this managerial kind of technocratic class as this is the be all end all, and this is what it means to be fully human.
Yes.
And call everyone else deplorable, and it's shameful. By the way, I do have a book that came to me that I was thinking of for the caller. There's a book called Land of Hope, an invitation to the great American story.
Land of Hope, you say?
And so Bill McClay is a great historian, and he's just written a book called Land of Hope, which is intended to serve as an American history textbook that I think addresses what the caller was talking about. It just came out this year.
And who's the author again?
Bill McClay. It's William McClay, Land of Hope, an invitation to America's story. And so I haven't read it yet, but it's on my desk, and it just came out. And McClay is a great guy, a historian who cares about and loves America, and I think has written a fair-minded history that would have a lot of the civics the caller was talking about. But we have a lot of work to do there. I mean, it's almost as if we don't have a lot of textbooks about civics that we produce because we've ceded that territory to the left, as you said earlier.
Yes, we have, and it seems to me that that technology and innovation is going to change the entire picture of education as we know it. The K through 12 structure, followed by 4 years. These are market divisions. These are how people organize business enterprises and don't really have a hell of a lot to do with what children learn or young adults learn and how they learn it. I think that with the emergence of the internet, that there's going to be there's a great business out there for some degree granting institution that can bring education more into focus using online resources. There's tons of these places out here. What we really need are probably a system of tutors or proctors in place to facilitate a lot of this basic education. We're rarely going to achieve the Aristotelian or Platonic model. We're not going to get to to great books, levels with Thomas Aquinas, college-type depth. But we can sure do better, and we can equip people to learn what they learn so they can put this together, and by age 18, have the basic skills that they need to be productive in society and to be a productive citizen as well, to participate intelligently. And more important from my perspective, that probably the thing that I hate most about our current system and these loans in our system of higher education is that it puts so many youngsters into this period of prolonged adolescence. So people can't really get married early enough when they most desire to be married, when they're younger. We have people being pushed off into their 30s before they can think about getting married and having a kid. This is terrible. We do terrible damage to families. And yet, that's the heart and soul of our society. Ironically, the only families that we support without reservation are those that are on welfare or come over illegally. We're coming up. I got 1 minute to go. Man, I got 4 minutes. Okay, thank goodness. Matt, I want to turn over the last 4 minutes to you to say whatever you'd like to say, whatever it is you think we need to know, and the most important steps that the average citizen can take in your judgment.
Sure. So first, I just want to say the Claremont Institute does. I'll give you a note of hope for you and your listeners. Mm-hmm. We do have these elite fellowship programs, and when I say elite, I don't mean most of the people you're thinking of who are terrible. I mean people out there who are young and in mid-career who are really trying to change America, and they come to us because they know they didn't receive an education about American government and American principles, and that's what we give to them. We make them part of a community of people who are still learning and thinking deeply about how to recover American principles in our society today. And they come from business, and they come from the administration, they come from D.C., they come from all over. So that's a great national program.
And they're truly elites. I mean, anybody who knows these people, and many of them, these are standout performers. These are top people. They're not people who just scored high on a test. These are people who actively, they've demonstrated that they care about this country and they have some talent to lead. So we do that, and that's important. But I would say, for most people, don't give up hope. We need to push the Republican Party to take bold measures to attack the authority of the left when it comes to education. And, unfortunately, everyone's been left out to dry by both political parties. We care about our kids. We care about education, and we have to do that ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. We have to, go to websites like AmericanMind.org, go to the Claremont.org, read the Claremont Review books. You have to educate yourself, and that's what they've left us. So we have to push the party to take bold moves to attack the left when it comes to education and stand our ground. And I think that's where we need to move. We need to threaten funding for these organizations, because we all need to remember this is our tax money. Yes.
These are our kids. And ultimately, this is our country that is being taken away from us by a ruling class of elites, especially here in California.
Oh, yes. Or as we like to say, our motto, thank you, Steve Smith, our motto here for School Choice 2020 is, it's your children, it's your money, it's your choice. It's our children, it's our money, it is our choice.
Absolutely.
And all we have, and this goes back to one of the core issues of what happens with youngsters when they're growing up. They're encouraged to parrot what they're told and to vote a certain way, but never quite taught how to think independently or to realize their duty to act actively. Freedom isn't free. We have to do these things. We have to do them on a Sunday night, just like you are. Again, his website is AmericanMind.org. It's Dr. Matthew Peterson, patriot, professor, and provocateur. Thank you for coming on Radio Free Los Angeles. It has been an absolute delight. I'm sure that we'll get a lot of response, a lot of callers in the next half hour. I'll talk to you soon, Matt. Thanks again. This is Mike Alexander and Jonathan Wilson. We'll be back with you after 9 o'clock. And don't forget, we got our Government Grifter of the Week award coming up at the end of the half hour. Thanks. Back with you in a minute.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
I am live. All right, Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, and Josh Jacobs has now joined us here.
We got the three amigos in here.
Thank you, Mike. Also, thank you, everybody, for voting no on Measure EE. It lost 54% no to 45% yes.
Went down 10 points. It was wonderful. It was terrible. What was, I think, even more interesting about it. But, first of all, I want to just say what a tremendous guest Matt Peterson was, and I hope all of you go to theamericanmind.org and sign up there. The work that he's doing out there with the Claremont Institute and the work that the Claremont Institute does in general, and in particular the Center for Constitutional Jurisprudence that I've been involved with here with John Eastman for so long. It is one of our great conservative cultural organizations. You should know more about it. And I've participated in their activities for years. But anyway, back with you here. Yes, Measure EE was fantastic. What has been more interesting, I think, than anything else has been the response of some of the media who have a lot of different approaches. One was Fox and Hounds, which tends to be a little bit conservative, realistic, and they said tended to focus on the lack of process. That is that they just mishandled it. Not that it was an outrageous waste of money, but somehow, some way, if they bring it around, it should be better. I mean, what the hell do you expect? They gave themselves a raise. They no sooner gave it. They need another $500 million. They're in the basement. And, it's absolutely crazy. Hey,
it was going to rip off the poor, middle class, and working class people.
I know. In fact, I got a caller on that. Brent from Los Angeles wanted to weigh in on it. Brent, how are you this evening?
Hi, Mike, John, and Josh.
Hey, Brent.
I wanted to thank you and congratulate you and Radio Free Los Angeles for your part in defeating Los Angeles' fraudulent Proposition EE.
Absolutely.
I think it's just the most select and sophisticated citizens of L.A. listen to Radio Free L.A.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
We're so sophisticated right here.
No, we are. We are. Common sense.
Yeah, that is the new sophistication. Common sense, clarity, just being normal.
Right.
I actually, just mentioning, I went to Mark Levin's book signing at the Reagan's Library.
Oh.
And there were 1,400, I think, 1,500, American conservatives, patriots, and it's amazing to just be in a giant field of normalcy.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so remarkable. It's one of these things that I've always thought of myself as, they try to put a label on you called conservative or right-winger. Well, I just always thought that we were kind of orthodox Americans, common sense, adhered to our traditions all along, and somehow, somewhere along the line, I became a far right-wing radical. But they are just, or whatever. You might have heard my conversation with Matt Peterson in the previous hour.
Yeah.
But I think that the good news is, and this is the only good news about high dropout rates, is that a lot of kids, including 75% of the high school graduates, don't go on to higher education and therefore are not exposed, at least directly, to this left-wing madness. And I think that's what accounts for the fact that the country is still split. If people were actually going on and getting higher, getting college degrees in 4-year, 5- and 6-year programs, I think that we'd be losing a lot more than we are. It is amazing.
But I'm thinking just normalcy insanity is the new revolution.
Yeah, it is. Or as I like to say about a lot of youngsters, you run into them 7th, 8th, 10th grade or whatever. They are the ones who have not yet had their common sense educated out of them, quote unquote, right?
Right.
Yeah, they have some experience, and especially when you read about D-Day and World War II, we have this process by which we infantilize our citizens, particularly our young students. Yet in World War II, there were a lot of 17-year-olds that hit the beach at Omaha and at Iwo Jima and lots of other people, lots of other battles. The average age of the pilot in the air war over Europe was 23, 24 years old, and they were leading bomber wings. And these are little snowflakes. They got a hold of their comfort dog and their aromatherapy and their blanket, cowering in the classroom because someone said Trump. Yeah.
And Dwight Eisenhower, General Dwight Eisenhower's granddaughter Susan did several interviews on NBC as well as Fox News, and she talked about her regret that this history of World War II is not taught much anymore. And these soldiers, they had selflessness about them. They were not into self-preservation. Too many people today are into self-preservation, but these guys willingly sacrificed their lives and risked their lives for our freedoms. And she says, that's one thing I regret. We're not being taught that much anymore in the public schools.
That's right. And yet we have we have our own generation of youngsters who go out and do it. It's still a great country, always will be. Brent, I want to thank you, but stand by because I got a special guest coming up here on line 1. So I got Tim from Moore Park, who's running for president against Trump. How are you tonight, Tim?
Tim Kalemkarian for U.S. President, TIM space KALEMKARIAN, best major candidate.
All right. So you now, are you running on the Republican ticket, Tim?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And do you have any endorsements thus far?
As far as I know, I'm my own endorsement.
Okay.
My platform is love, peace, joy, truth, freedom, and self-control.
Hey, I'm with you there.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And that's stolen from the Bible.
Yeah. Well, okay.
In case anybody says I'm stealing information.
Well, it's fitting. It's fitting that you should call on the Feast of Pentecost, the birthday of the church. So, in any event, now. What specific legislative programs are you advocating for, Tim?
I can't say.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you can tell us.
I can't say. Just go to the next question.
Oh, okay. Well, the next question would be, what is it that Trump is doing that you wouldn't do? Or what is it that he's not doing that you would do? In other words, a legislative program, or maybe you could try something out. This is a approach that a lot of politicians usually take and said, dear Mr. or Miss Voter, you should vote for me Because maybe you could complete the sentence for me.
I'm going to do the best I can.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the best I can.
Oh, you're going to do the best you can. I thought you were talking about doing your best for answering the question.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the best I can.
Now, Tim, what kind of preparation, professional or otherwise, have you had for this for the presidency? Have you held prior political office?
I think this is the 7th or 8th time I've run for president.
For
U.S. president.
Is that a record?
Well,
I think so.
All right. Well, you're right up there with Sanders here. Yeah, but have you?
I want to give a Kentucky Fried Chicken of every pot. That's right.
Have you held? Hey, Tim, have you held any elective office thus far?
Well, when I ran for U.S. Senate, I got about 19,000 votes.
Wow. Okay. Well, look. You were very excited, as the primary comes up. I hope you will call in again. Now, in the meanwhile, do you have a website where people can go to find out more about you?
Okay, just type in TIM space KALEM KARIAN.
All right.
TIM space KALEM KARIAN. I'm all over the internet.
Oh, I can imagine. Tim, I want to thank you for calling in there, and you stay on those prescriptions, okay? Thanks,
God
my
bless
friend.
you.
God bless. Igualmente. All right. I lost my other caller. I guess he figured.
How can you top that?
Yeah,
I know. Chicken.
Did the other caller?
Hey, Dave
think we were
from
endorsing?
Whittier, call back in, man. Come on, you could follow that. It isn't that damn hard.
And our friend George called earlier, so
he did.
Yeah, so George, if you're listening, please call in.
Yeah, we love to hear from you. We got a few more minutes, but at any rate, God bless Tim. And, it's a free country. He can run, if he wants, as TIM space.
KRA.
As in out there, right?
Yeah.
So
it's Tim for president.
Tim
Submitted
for president.
your
Well, I like
approval.
his platform. It's very simple.
man.
He's just going to do the best he can.
Doing the best
peace,
he can.
love, man. We've heard this before.
Kumbaya.
Kumbaya. I mean, that was, he and Jimmy Carter could run together, so.
But it would have been nice to hear why he doesn't think Trump deserves a second term.
Yeah, I think he's going to work on his platform there. But,
I've heard him on Hugh Hewitt's show before as well.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's been on Hugh Hewitt's show.
Well, then he's kind of KRLA talk radio
Yeah.
royalty.
Exactly.
All right. Well, well, at least
The KRLA team, if you will.
Oh, well, that's right. So I finally found out who the other guy is who's listening on Sunday nights to our program here. So, good Lord.
But we're giving equal time right now, so we can invite the president on to give his rebuttal, right?
Well, yeah, we're going to have, speaking of which, we're going to have Juan Tierra will be coming up here at the end of the hour. We will do our Government Grifter of the Week Award. You'll enjoy that, as always. But in the meanwhile, the state is heating up. They're passing more taxes. They're passing more regulations. This city, back to this Measure EE, it is such an important and significant. We do have a caller here. Linda from Burbank. How are you this evening, Linda?
Okay, I want to know why California and Los Angeles does business with China and they take a kumbaya attitude toward it.
Yeah, why California does business with China?
Yeah, and Los Angeles as well, and they take a kumbaya attitude toward it.
Yeah, well, economics are complex. This is a very, very difficult issue. China, as we know, in modern times, has not liberalized or moderated as many had hoped it would. There was a wide belief. I think Richard Nixon felt that way. in his, I'm trying to remember the name of his book, but I read it back in the late 60s. Even though late 70s actually is when it came out, but even though liberals hate Nixon, as a matter of fact, yeah, he has been had a significant influence on policy. He was a guy who felt that the way to deal with Russia was to take every opportunity to get information inside the Soviet Union, to get to let them find out who we were. He was the one who opened up China. He felt that keeping China bottled up was not going to be good. He decided that we were going to reestablish relations and open up the pathway for the modernization of the Chinese economy, that it was good for the world. And I think that Nixon's judgment has in large measure been justified, but we have failed to deal with that part of the Chinese government, which remains adverse to us. So I think why California and L.A. at the official levels, I think they just don't care. They want more money, more business, more revenue. But I think there are a number of us on the conservative side who say we have to be a little bit more careful, and I think you would appreciate that.
No other state does business with China, as far as I know.
What's that?
As far as I know, no other state does business with China.
Oh, no, many do.
Many do. And the thing is, I don't know if you heard about this, but this was on Yahoo News earlier today. 1 out of 7, it says it's estimated, in Hong Kong protested against the Chinese government and were protesting for liberty and freedom in Hong Kong. And this is 30 years after the Tiananmen Square incident. And sadly, only like 15% of those in China know about Tiananmen Square and what happened that day.
That's right. That's right. Linda, thanks for calling. We appreciate it. I want to take, what happened to Dave? He disappeared again. Oh, my goodness.
I guess he couldn't top, what's his name?
All right. Well, hey, Dave, we love you anyway. Yeah, that is an extraordinary thing if you saw the picture of all those people in China there. If only we could get that kind of crowd here to get the vote out against our own totalitarian government here in California.
Oh, yeah.
The totalitarian impulse of the average government bureaucrat in our state is not materially different from anybody in China, and we should be rebelling against it. But I want to finish up the one comment I was trying to make earlier about Measure EE. They wonder why it fails. I mean, this government and the average voter really doesn't distinguish that much between one branch of government and the other, the school districts versus the city. But the fact is that they were seeking another $500 million at the same time that they're arriving at agreements with homeless people, at the same time that we've had an outbreak of typhus down there. The police station apparently is rat-filled.
It is, yeah.
Right?
City Hall is full of rats, and that's not just the politicians.
Not just the politicians, exactly. And probably the four-legged ones resent the intrusion.
And then somebody else was saying this week, a real Judas in our book, he saying, oh, yeah, we're going to put porta potties and all these other things for homeless people. Kevin Judas. The thing was that, he said we're going to do this, but the problem is that it's all talk. He's the same guy who speaks politician. He said, oh, these taxes on our roads, it's really going to help the city of Los Angeles to have better streets. It's like, dude, that is politician speak. It's baloney. It's not going to happen.
It applies to so much that we see in our society, and why we have to take these things into our hands as citizens and develop a whole new era of citizen activism using the state and local initiative, and also getting new people into office. Because all these people, if they were ever going to, if they woulda, they coulda, and they didn't. They just weren't. Well, look, it's 9:25 here, or there about. Oh, no, it's not. Let's get one on. Hey, Juan, ¿cómo estás?
Yes, sir.
Hey, yeah.
And now it's time for the weekly Government Grifter Award. Where is Mr. Juan Tierra?
How you doing this evening, Juan? What do you have for us?
Well, I'd like to say it's nice to see all you guys are there, the Troika, on duty tonight.
Oh, we do, yeah.
Thank you.
We're in our Russian mode.
First order of business.
Right,
For the past three Sunday nights, I've been exposing the outlandish spending of the LAUSD.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the district in its parcel tax scam, known as Partisan EE, went down to resounding defeat.
Yes.
So tonight, we're going to take a little break, and for some comic relief, revisit an easy target, San Francisco, the city by the bay. Now, where your humble researcher lived for 5 years back.
Oh, you're humble, all right. Whereas Churchill said, a humble man with much to be humble about.
Good news, the Dodgers beat the Giants today, so bad news for San Francisco yet again.
Hey, we're stepping on Juan. Go ahead.
Juan used to be a hippie, actually.
He was.
I'm a Dodger fan anyway.
Yeah.
Now, back in the day when I lived there, it was for the most part a beautiful, classy, and clean jewel of a city. That was before left-wing progressives took it over, and now parts of the town are littered with trash, human feces, and used hypodermic needles.
Mm-hmm.
But in a radical departure, tonight I'm going to focus on some government employees who are not really grifters and actually earn their money.
Oh,
my main source, the main daily newspaper, the San Francisco Chronicle.
Yeah,
that's what they call it, by the way.
Yeah.
Reported in 2018, a poop patrol had been formed to collect, quote, vagrant-generated feces, unquote, and to steam clean and disinfect certain parts of the city known as brown zones, quote unquote.
Oh, man.
This program is in reaction to the tremendous amount of feces complaints, as many as 16,000 a single week.
Yeah.
These jobs pay pretty well, $71,000 in yearly salary, but with mandated pension and health benefits, the overall package can be worth up to $184,000 a year.
That's right.
Gives dirty jobs a whole new meaning, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Stepping on my lines again here, folks.
Yeah.
In a related development, the city of San Francisco has contracted a 4-person needle team to collect used hypodermic needles in certain high-density drug addict districts. The needle team has an initial budget of $364,000, which works out to $91,000 per employee per year.
Now,
while these jobs do pay quite well, these job descriptions are rather off-putting, to put it mildly. And since these are jobs Americans won't do, and most Americans won't do, I nominated and designated the members of the San Francisco Poop Patrol and Needle teams as co-winners of the governmental Non-Grifter of the Week award.
All right.
There you go.
Well, these guys previously what? So they have. So is there an award for anyone in particular, or just a whole category?
It's a team award.
All right.
However, next week I will do some financial things which you will find interesting.
So it's kind of like a participation trophy.
Yeah.
That's true. By the way,
winner, everybody wins.
Right.
While you laugh at San Francisco, look at the left coast cities: Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, L.A.
Yeah.
The downtowns are run by progressives, and what happens?
Yep.
Look like a third world dump.
All right. You take the music down. Thanks. We won't do the drum roll tonight since he just kind of there's no real winner. So, everybody's special. My government employee is a government employee.
Everyone's a winner, baby. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's it. Boy, there are a bunch of winners already.
All right.
Winning.
Needle team, that's us. We're in charge of needling those in power and getting them to pay attention.
This is a dangerous job, Mike.
Oh, it is. There was that guy on TV. It was called what? Dirty Jobs?
Dirty Jobs.
Yeah. I nominate as dirtiest job in the United States. Who was Barbara Streisand's husband?
Oh, Jim Brolin.
Yeah, James Brolin. He was the dirtiest job in America award. Having to be married to her. Man, I'll tell you what, that guy deserves a prize. It is just amazing. But ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that all of our cities are out of control because of these salaries and benefits, no matter how well deserved. All right? No matter, and I don't think they are, but no matter who it is that are out there, we're dying. City of Santa Barbara, 16% of this year's budget goes for pensions. And ladies and gentlemen, it is not enough to catch up. They are way behind the 8 ball, way behind CalPERS, and they need to be devoting all of their budget just to make a down payment. They can't do it. We can't get there from here. The teachers, all this $500 million, wouldn't even make a decent down payment on the pension obligations that they've already incurred. This whole thing is out of control, and that's why you are needed here at Radio Free Los Angeles. Go to schoolchoice2020.org. Become part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem. Don't tell me you support school choice if you don't support school choice. This is Mike Alexander, Josh Jacobs, and the wonderful, incredible, redoubtable
You remember my name this
Jonathan
time?
Wilson. I did. I remembered his name. I get the. Thanks for being here, folks. See you next week. Radio Free Los Angeles out.